Okay. It's all
Do I
you.
have
You
to
can,
hit got it?
um, yeah, I mean, it's all you can identify however you want. And
Alrighty.
I'm gonna mute myself.
All right. My name is Danny, and I am an alcoholic. I am a grateful, recovering, super messy, in the moment alcoholic. I have been in recovery for about 17 months now. And, it's been a wild journey. All of this actually started from Instagram, believe it or not. 17 months ago, I was in a really horrible spot. And, I drank for 27 years consecutively. There was no break other than pregnancies in my drinking. And life just became absolutely miserable, chaotic, unmanageable, and I was absolutely powerless over alcohol. And not just alcohol, I was using prescription pills and drinking at the same time to amplify my drunk state of mind. And it truly just got to a point where my life revolved entirely around alcohol. But it wasn't always that way. So let's back up. I was born in the early 80s. My parents were your typical hippie couple that got married, and they had me. And then a couple years later, they had my little brother, Justin. And, they maintained their addictions throughout, their marriage and their life. And I don't know that it was at some peak in their marriage, that addiction was heavier or less, but they did very much have that lifestyle. They were hippies, and that's sort of, maintained throughout their marriage. Needless to say, my little brother got sick when he was about 6 months old. And it all started with a misdiagnosed ear infection. And it just progressively got worse from there. And he was extremely sick for months upon months, in and out of the hospital. Hospitals, doctors were misdiagnosing him, what was going on. My parents were going through hell. I'm assuming, I was too young to know otherwise, but I'm assuming that their addictions probably skyrocketed then. I have some pretty vague memories, even as a young toddler, running around the house and remembering that scraping sound on the mirror, and just some of the arguments they would have. And in any case, a lot of trips to the hospital at that point. I know that it was causing a huge wedge between my parents. And so I was about 4, and my mom and my dad split. My mom and I and my little brother moved out with a man who became her boyfriend. And very shortly after that, my little brother came down with, or he was so sick with back-to-back ear infections that he developed spinal meningitis, and then he ended up getting pneumonia shortly after that. And in conjunction with a weakened immune system and everything else, he went into a coma, and he died very shortly after that. He was almost 2 years old. I believe that is what shifted my parents' addictions into overdrive. They lost their son, and I think I just ended up becoming that child that was put on the back burner. They had to take care of me because I was theirs, right? But by no means, as a child, as an adult, even looking back into my childhood, did I ever feel I was, their priority. I was just there. Needless to say, my parents got divorced. My dad moved to Utah. He is a biomedical engineer, still maintaining his career despite his addictions. And my mom continued living with this man who very quickly became abusive to a degree that I still can't wrap my head around today. So when I was about 5, I started bouncing back and forth between my mom and my dad, and they decided on this every other year custody arrangement. So I would go spend every other year with my dad, which turned out to be a blessing because the years that I was with my mom were the years that I was extremely and heavily abused by her boyfriend. So to put that into perspective, my mom and her boyfriend got so heavily involved in their addictions, which was meth, by the way, very heavy meth users. They were not able to maintain a household. So it wasn't long before they purchased a small travel trailer. And that is what I grew up in behind my grandfather's house. I actually carry this around in my purse with me because it's a great reminder. And this picture is a little old and beat up, but it's a great reminder, to stay strong when time gets tough. And I don't know if you can really see it, but this is the travel trailer. Still resides at my mom's house to this day, that I grew up in. So from the time I was 6 years old until I was 12, I lived in that trailer with my mom and her abusive meth head alcoholic boyfriend. And my mom was also on meth too. They were both very, very involved with it. They were manufacturing it. He was also an alcoholic, and it was in those moments of his heavy alcoholism in conjunction with doing meth that the abuse really took place. So there was multiple bouts at him strangling me. I can't tell you how many times I woke up with him shaking me, moving my head around, smacking me, screaming at me to wake up. My whole body was tingly. It would take me a moment to come back into reality. Didn't know where I was, who I was, what was going on. I just knew that at one point I had been in trouble for whatever the case may have been. I think, maybe I missed a dish in the sink, or maybe I didn't pull the weeds the way he wanted me to, whatever the case may be. He found it, he found it right to abuse me in those moments. Strangling was his favorite thing to do. The very first time he ever actually abused me, I'll never forget this. I came home from school early one day, and it was like an early release day. And they had always told me if I came home from school to check under the mat, grab the key, come inside, start my homework, wait for them to get home. And I was 6 years old. I came home, looked under the mat, saw the key. But I also saw my bike sitting in the corner, and that looked way more appealing. So I grabbed my bicycle and I went out and started riding my bicycle. And next thing I know, he's out there chasing after me in his truck, grabs me by the hair, throws me in his truck, gets in, backhands me. And at this point, I'm killed over because I can't breathe. Gets me back over to, at this time, we were actually living in his house before they lost it and we moved to the trailer. And he drags me in by my hair. He pulled me into a bathroom where he filled up a sink, and he held my head underwater until I was kicking and screaming, and now bloody because I'm banging my head around because I couldn't breathe. And very shortly after that, he grabbed me and stripped me down of all my clothing, threw me on the ground, and he sat on top of me, all of his weight. And I peed and I shit myself and I was throwing up, and, obviously hysterical. I couldn't breathe. I felt every bone in my body crack. I thought I was going to die. And that was how my childhood abuse started. It was from that point on that it was heavy abuse, just like that. If I didn't finish what I was eating, there would be times where it would make me sick. For instance, wasn't a big fish eater, but he would put a piece of fish down on my plate and tell me to eat it. And I would eat it until I would get sick and throw it up. And then he would make me sit there and eat my throw up. So this was the kind of sick man that I grew up with. He was very heavily involved in his addictions, obviously. Him and my mom had very heavy in their lifestyle was distributing meth, making meth. There was a shed right next to our trailer where they actually had their whole setup. In fact, my mom's best friend actually died in a meth lab in a house that caught fire from the lab. And yeah, that was just sort of the drug exposure that I had growing up. I was always around it. He would sit there and make glass pipes right in front of me and tell me he was blowing glass and that it was an art. I mean, I was 7 years old and I was sitting there in awe, sitting across the table in this tiny trailer, watching this man blow a glass pipe in a torch, thinking that if I just pretended to be truly interested in what he was doing, I might not get the shit beat out of me that night, right? And so I went through this for 6 years. And during that 6 years, I would bounce to my dad's every other year. He lived in Utah for a couple years. He lived in Vegas for another year. He kind of moved around. He was a biomedical engineer, and his job sort of required him to travel and relocate. But nonetheless, when I would get to go see my dad and spend those times with him, my dad very quickly evolved into like my hero, because my dad did not abuse me. Was he the best dad ever? No, he was also a meth user and every other drug user, and he was an alcoholic too. He was in a rock band, and I would spend a watching this storage unit that they had. They were called the oh damn, what was the name of it? Oh, I can't remember now. But anyway, so I would spend every other year with my dad, and he quickly became like my hero, because he was the one that I felt that I could have a normal childhood with. Well, normal in comparison to what I was experiencing. And so I never had the bravery or the courage to tell him what was going on at home, because there was this huge part of me that was so scared to not go home, thinking that if I didn't, I wouldn't be there to protect my mom, and because I mean, this man, he beat my mom worse than he beat me. I mean, he put her in the hospital a couple of times. I mean, I called the cops on several occasions to stop the violence, to stop him hurting her. I can't tell you how many times we would run up to Grandpa's house, and Grandpa was our hero too, just lock ourselves in the house, and he would pound on the door and he'd break windows. And, it was just a true nightmare living with this man. But so about 12 years old, I got older, and I knew at that point in my heart something wasn't right. Started fighting back, started using my words. My mom started getting braver. She started fighting back. And I was in junior high, and I had a boyfriend at the time. And my boyfriend was best friends with this kid whose house we would always go spend all this time at. My mom finally asked me one night, "Where are you spending all this time at?" And I said, "Over at Nick's house." And so she said, "Well, I'd like to come by there and meet Nick. And, I want to know where you're spending your time." Because I mean, I was there every day. We ditched school over, whatever, this is where I was. And so she eventually met Nick's dad. And that's when our life changed. She got a restraining order, left her boyfriend, got a restraining order. And for the first time in my life, I felt like there was going to be this huge, amazing change, right? Like no more abuse and no more drugs. And my life was just going to be normal. It was not even a year after that I discovered alcohol and got drunk for the first time at 13. And so my life went from all this crazy childhood abuse to falling completely in love with a substance that made me forget about all of this childhood abuse, right? And so that's where my alcoholism started. And I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea at the time what that type of love would constitute. I just knew that it felt good, and it made me feel better. And it gave me this confidence that I didn't otherwise have. And it gave me confidence enough that I could be this outgoing, bubbly, lively person, and I can get all this attention that I didn't otherwise have, because growing up with the childhood that I grew up with there was so much neglect and there was so much negativity and there was just so much toxic elements, so much drugs, so much violence, so much everything in my life that when I discovered I could be this completely different person when I was drunk, oh my God. Well, as any alcoholic truly knows, I quickly fell in love with just being a drunk. And so, you fast forward 27 years of active drinking, and that was just life as I knew it. I never really thought it was a problem. I never really thought that the capacity in which I drank was a problem because it's all I've ever known. Everybody that I knew and know to date drinks. It's a normal thing to drink. Everybody that I know, if they don't drink, they use drugs or they medicate or there's some form of filling a void with some sort of substance, right? So I always took pride in the fact that I wasn't a drug user because I had grown up in such a toxic drug, induced environment. I always said I will never be a drug user. I could never be that person. And I was just so badly scarred from that I blame the drug, and thank God, because to date, I still blame the drug. I know that this person has some accountability and responsibility of it, but in any case, over the course of those 27 years, I somehow managed to have 3 amazing kids. I have been I've gone through 2 divorces, both of which took place because of alcohol related tendencies. Just can't keep my shit together. And I was more interested in partying. My spouse was more interested in partying, and that environment ultimately just led to a lot of fighting and a lot of, animosity and resentments towards each other. It's hard to keep a marriage together when you're living in such a unmanageable situation. And so I was single for a long time, and even though I was still actively drinking heavily, I was, I had a full-time job. I had a part-time job. I was in school full-time. And it's crazy when I think about it now, how I even accomplished all that. I don't know. It's all really just a blur. But I can't tell you how many countless times that I went to work hungover or how many papers I wrote drunk, or I can't tell you how many of my children's school events, how many of my children's sports events I missed because I was just too hungover, or it interfered with my party. I very quickly, alcohol became my escape and my go-to for everything. It was my reason for absolutely everything. It was my reason to relax. It was my reason to celebrate. It was my reason not to feel. It was my reason for absolutely everything. And I raised my kids living in that headspace. So fast forward to 17 months ago, I was sitting in my kitchen, and my sister-in-law, who I think I know you met, we can probably take that part out, but my sister-in-law walked in my front door, and she was like glowing. And I looked at her and I said, what in the hell are you doing? Like, whatever drug, whatever it is you're doing, I need some of that, because I wanted what she had. And she was like, I'm freaking sober, girl. I don't drink anymore. And I was like, what? Oh no, I can't do that. No way. Okay, yeah, fine. You do you, but that's not me. I just was so stuck in I couldn't even imagine my life without alcohol. Truly. I mean, that's just how I lived. It's just how it was. Every night it was bottles and bottles of wine. Every weekend I would look forward to going out and partying. I literally created my life so that it revolved around alcohol. There was no, okay, I'm going to live life as a responsible adult and I'm going to drink, in a capacity that works. No way. It wasn't like that. My friends drank, and if they didn't drink, I couldn't be friends with them. I mean, I was always that girl that people would call and be like, "Hey, what's up? Let's go to the bar. Let's go get fucked up. Let's go do this. Let's go get in trouble. Let's go do bad girl shit." Whatever we would do. And I would be the first to say, "I'll be there in 5." Never did I turn down a good time. And you know, I'm going to be 40, and it took me all those years having to go through all that and watching my sister-in-law walk in my front door and go to wake up that next morning after she told me she was sober. I woke up that next morning and I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to try that. I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And that morning, that Friday morning, I woke up. That was the night before, that was the last time I ever drank. I committed to the first 30 days. I thought, this is absolutely insane. I can't even imagine my life without alcohol. I can't imagine not having that version of me. Who am I without alcohol? You know, I really started questioning things like, how do I function? How do I maintain relationships? How do I party? Oh my God, how am I going to deal with stress? Oh my gosh, like, how am I going to have events without alcohol? I just didn't know who I was without alcohol. And for some reason, and call it a God shot, call it whatever you want, there was some shift in the universe that said, give it a shot. So I did. And I committed to the first 30 days. And in those first 30 days, it was really kind of incredible what happened. It was nothing particular that happened. Rather, it was all these particular moments that sort of compiled. And that's when I woke up and was like, oh my God. A, you're a completely fucked up person. B, you're never going to get any better if you don't get rid of alcohol permanently. Like, if you go back to what you were doing 30 days ago, nothing is going to change. And I wanted to change so bad because I was just so sick of living in that like twisted, victim. I was always victim. Everything was everybody else's fault. I was always flaking on everybody for everything. I couldn't be a good friend. I couldn't be in any kind of commitment, whether it was an event, whether it was a social, whether it was to my kids, whether it was to my relationships. I just couldn't be in any type of commitment because it interfered with what was really important to me. And so I started noticing that I was able to do things a little bit differently. It was pretty messy in the beginning, for the first 90 days, I was on this pink cloud. Oh my God, I'm sober. This is amazing. And I can make these big changes. I started seeing there was some clarity that came. There were some moments of serenity. There was some, just, epiphanies that were happening. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep this going. And after 90 days, I feel so hard on my ass. It was just right back to that slump of, oh my God, who are you? What are you doing? And I had this like overwhelming anxiety in this pit in my stomach that I just didn't know how to be a sober person. And so I created an Instagram, and that's how Sober Socially developed. And I thought, damn, I don't have anybody in my life to connect to who's sober, who doesn't drink, who doesn't use. How am I supposed to do this? It was just my sister-in-law. We weren't super close yet at the time. We started getting real close right after that. And so I created this Instagram, and I started watching other people. And I was watching other people tell their story, just sort of, like how I am now, and sharing their journey, their experience, strength, and hope, sharing all of their moments, and they were doing it out loud. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I need to do. I need to connect with these people. I need to be a part of this community, because it just resonated so much down into my heart of hearts. I thought, these are my people. This is where I belong. And so I just dove in. I started following all these different accounts. I stumbled across Jim, God, why am I brain farting? I have like so many different sober accounts on my mind right now, with Valor Fitness, and then with not Stay Humble. I don't know. There's just so many. Anyway, I started stumbling across all these people. Then as I'm falling on my ass, trying to figure out, who I am in sobriety, I had put it out there on Instagram, like, hey, you guys, I'm really struggling and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to stay sober and I don't know how to do this right. Somebody recommended AA. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to AA. Those people freaking creep me out. I am not one of those people, that's for the homeless guy drinking out of the brown bag. And whatever. I thought my shit didn't stink right. I walked my ass into an AA meeting and it changed my freaking life. I am in steps 10, 11, and 12 right now. I have an amazing sponsor who has just given me so much hope and she has shined so much light in my life, and this program of fellowship and this community of recovery that I get to be a part of, even indirectly on Instagram, but I get to go and be a part of all these events where these people get to continue to share their journeys out loud. And it is so impactful because I know I'm not alone. I am not alone. I am not alone in any of the things I went through as a child. I'm not alone in any of the ways that I coped with adulthood because of what I went through as a child. And I'm not alone because I still fucking battle. I'm not alone in this journey. And that for me is huge because I grew up feeling so alone. And I was so alone in my addiction, right? It was like nobody else is as bad as I am. And well, everybody else is just as bad as I was. There's no story that's better or worse than the other, but it just feels good not to be alone. So, what's worked most for me is being a part of just an amazing fellowship within AA, having an amazing sponsor, being able to connect with other women, and even obtaining my first sponsee recently has been, oh my gosh, a game changer in some ways. Being able to dive in deep with other recovery communities and just really listen and connect with these people, and really just putting my heart and soul into it. It's so important to me. And now I know that I went through all of this shit that I went through, and that I am going through all of these things that I'm going through now, these struggles, because it gives me this opportunity to grow and overcome and learn. And then when I do that, I get to share that with everybody so that they don't feel alone. And I feel so much passion about that. And I feel so much excitement about that. Just that alone kind of keeps me going. It kind of keeps me in that headspace of, you didn't come this far to give up, not just on myself, but give up on everybody else. I feel like I do this for me so that I can be a better version of me and share that version with other people, to give them that hope, to give them that joy that, they might need. And it works. There's so many people on Instagram that inspire me. There's people who come to me daily and tell me I inspire them, and all I'm doing is recovering, and so it's just, this journey is a blessing. Everything I went through as a kid, it's a blessing in the weirdest way, because I get to overcome and I get to share that. All the addictions that I went through and that I experienced because of everything I've been through, it's a blessing because I get to overcome all that and I get to talk about it. And so I guess there's just that part of me that keeps going because it's so important to share, yeah, so that's where I'm at today. I get to be a present mom. I get to be that mom that my kids can come to when they have a problem. I get to be a far better friend. I've lost 3/4 of my friends, but I guess that kind of happens. It's okay. I have made some amazing friends in recovery. My memory is intact. I get to dig deep into this person who was this dead flower that's blooming into something new and beautiful. And it's very empowering. It's very exciting. There was a lot of physical changes that came along with my sobriety and stuff that has brought me confidence that I never had before. I used to have to drink to feel this way. And now I get to just be this messy person who still gets to feel confident about it, because I know I'm not alone. And I know that, I'm in this sober state of mind, and I know that I'm in recovery, and I know that I'm over here fighting for it. So, the blessings, they just keep rolling in. One door after the other just keeps opening in the strangest ways, whether it's some type of career opportunity that's even within recovery, or it's, you know, a new relationship that I get to connect with another person, another friend, another human being, right? It's just having those good soul connections. And that's what keeps me here. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me sober. And yeah, I'm just happy, joyous, and free over here. I get to just be a different person today. And I love who that person is. I love who I'm becoming. And that's not something that I could have said some 17 months ago. So yeah, huge changes with sobriety. It's a journey. There's a lot of hard moments, but you know, I look forward to them in a sense, because it means I get to overcome, and there's always a silver lining. There's always something to learn from it. And I seem to be, when I get into these hard moments, I seem to be able to connect with other people, and I learn something every time. So that's been pretty incredible on its own too. So yeah, I don't know if anybody is struggling and feels like they want to give up and there's no more hope. I don't know. My tool is to get down on my knees and I pray. I pray my ass off. I pray my heart out. I cry, ugly cry. I reach out to the people that I love. I reach out to the people that I know that love me back unconditionally, that I can spew all this bullshit out to, and they can say, you're not alone, you're okay, and you're loved. And yeah, just don't quit fighting. You know, it's worth it. Every bit of it. Fighting the good fight. That's all I got.
Wow. Do you want people to find you on, you want to plug your Instagram real quick? Well,
Sure.
we'll act like we didn't cut and just pick up by saying,
Okay.
if you want to follow me or connect with me or whatever, just go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in following me or connecting with me, I love chatting with new people. I love sharing stories, especially experience, strength, and hope. My Instagram is sober_socially. And yeah, reach out, DM, leave a comment, anything. Would love to chat.
Perfect.